All right, can you just introduce us to yourself and let us know where you're from if you want to? You don't have to. And then just let us know. Um, let's start with what house you're in. That's a good first one.
All right. So I'm James. I'm from Utah. And the house thing, I haven't done one of the official tests, I don't think. I
Okay.
probably did one when I was like really little, but I'm just going to guess and say Hufflepuff. I think, uh,
Yes, the best
I
house.
think I'm pretty proud. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I'm a very proud Hufflepuff, and I feel like a lot of people who are Hufflepuffs are also very proud of their Hufflepuffness. There's this one. It's not like crazy famous, but Joe had this one interview that she gave about the Battle of Hogwarts. Someone sent it to me. I forgot who sent it to me, and I couldn't share it yet because we hadn't like gotten to that point in the books. But it was essentially how Joe thinks Hufflepuff is like the best house. How they like willingly stayed back the entirety of the house to fight at the Battle of Hogwarts. So I'm so proud of being a Hufflepuff. Glad you're in our house too.
Yeah, man, we don't mess around.
Mm-mm.
We might be warm and friendly on the outside. We got a little bit of fire too when we need
100%.
it.
Yeah, when we need it for sure.
Yeah.
Um, okay, when did you first start reading Harry Potter? When was your first ever exposure to it? When did you read it to start?
So we got into it pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
I think my the earliest was probably my mom reading them to us
Mm.
as bedtime stories, and we loved it. Me and my brothers, we got super into it. So she read I think the first three as bedtime stories, and then at some point the movies came out, and I think for a few years I got really into the movies, and for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason I think we kind of stopped reading the books, but eventually, let's see, Goblet of Fire, or not Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, whenever that came out, like 2004 or
Mm-hmm.
something. Um, I remember when that came out. We were staying with my grandma in California. I remember she had this house with like a sunroom, and we were there for like a week or something, and
Mm-hmm.
so we were. I remember being in the sunroom, just hanging out, playing with my brothers or whatever. And then there was the midnight premiere while we were there. And my older brother went with, I guess, one of my parents. And I don't know why I didn't go. I think it would have been super cool. But I guess
Yeah.
back then I was just like, well, as long as somebody brings home the book, I don't really
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
care.
Yep.
But he came home, and I remember waking up at 8 a.m. or whatever it was, and he's in the corner sitting in a chair, and he's like halfway through it already. Through this big old beast of a book, and he I think he read it in like 2 days or something.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, um, I'm second oldest, so once he was done, I got it next. And, uh, it took me longer to read it. It might have taken me a few days, but I
No
went
problem
through
with
it pretty
that.
quick. Yeah, but I just remember sitting in that sunroom for like hours for the next few days, just super immersed in it. But I also I I don't know why I didn't read the fourth one. I don't know if my mom just she must have just stopped reading after the third one or something,
Hmm.
because I remember going through the beginning of the fifth one thinking like it was this Kidoric Diggory guy. I don't know who this guy is. This he died, but there was just a whole bunch of stuff I missed. But I think once I read the fifth one, I'm sure I went back and started from the beginning and
Yeah.
actually filled in those gaps. But that was it. And then the sixth one came out. After that, I was pretty on top of it.
Yeah.
And I think the seventh one, I think I read that thing so fast. I don't even know if I really followed the story that much. I was just so concerned about whether he was going to die at the end that it was like I think I read the first half pretty well,
Yeah.
and then by the second half, I was just like glancing across the pages really quick, and then just trying to get to the end, and
Yep.
I remember getting near the end, and I did pretty good about not cheating, except I had one moment where I sort of glanced at the last page, and I just remember seeing the name Albus, and I was thinking, like, I didn't let myself see anything else, but I
Hmm.
remember thinking, oh, something with Dumbledore's going on, I guess. But eventually, I made it through without spoiling it for myself, and yeah,
That's
that was
a
it.
that's an impressive feat. Like that was a hard thing for me to do when I had the seventh book, to consciously not look at any of the extra chapter titles that were on the next few pages, or to not look at any words that were in the last few pages. That was actually a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Luckily, I think I was probably too dumb to get anything from any of the chapter titles. I think you could throw a lot of info my way, and it just wouldn't have even like I probably could have been online looking at spoilers, and it probably would have not even registered with me. But
I think that's like a. I love everyone's like entry into the wizarding world, into like Harry Potter, and I think my favorites are always the ones that are, um, like your parents read it to you as a bedtime story. Because I just will live and die by this, but I think it is like the absolute perfect bedtime story. I can imagine reading
yeah,
like a chapter a night to your kids, and there's just such excitement. All the chapters end so well. Like half of them are cliffhangers that you have to keep reading, but you can't. So you're like stuck in between these days where you just can't read, and you're just excited to like have this bedtime story. It's I,
yeah. Luckily, my mom was a pretty good sport about all that stuff.
mm,
So when we get to the end of a chapter with the cliffhanger, we'd be like, "You gotta read one more. You gotta read one more." She's like, "Shoot, I want to know what's going on too."
yeah,
So we end up reading like 6 chapters that night, and
that's
it was
awesome.
perfect.
It is so perfect. That's such a good memory. That's
Although she was great. I mean, she's a great reader, but there's a few names that I still hear wrong sometimes because I guess this must have been before the movies came out, but
mm-hmm.
I just remember she would pronounce Hagrid as Hagrid. Uh, Sirius Black was Cyrus Black.
That's so awesome, though. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck she was doing with Hermione, but it definitely was not
Yeah.
Hermione.
Usually it's like
So
Hermione or Hermie1 or something like that.
yeah. Oh, you know what? I think so. My mom's stepmom is named. How did she say it? It's spelled the same,
Hmm.
not Hermione, but it's Hermione. That's how
Herm.
she was saying it was
Wow.
Hermione.
I guess that kind of makes sense. Like as an American, like Hermione kind of makes sense more as as a thing to say than Hermione. Hermione sounds very British, you know.
Yeah, that's super British for sure.
Um, I love that's like I love the personal touches that the books also has. I feel like everyone has those to some extent. Where like if especially if you grew up with it, and I feel like future generations might not have this that much because it's so embedded in the culture. But like when the books were being published initially, how everyone was even saying Hermione's name wrong, and Joe had to like actually have a character, Victor Crumb, not say her name right, and then she like corrected the character in the book, so everyone would start saying Hermione's name correctly. But like for those small little things, of like family lore that when your mom read it to you that you kind of mispronounce some characters, but I'm like, keep the mispronunciations. That's even better. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's kind of the my family's personal version of it, I guess.
Yeah, I love it.
It's a pretty different story, but
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Now,
we were whole family was Victor Crumb, so
yeah, the best. I love it. Now have you read this a few times since? What's how many times are you up to?
let's see. So I the seventh one came out. I read it at least one more time through.
Mm-hmm.
I took a pretty big break from it, like throughout high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember as each of the later movies was coming out, I was getting later and later into high school, so I was kind of losing interest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think by the time the seventh one, I guess both seventh movies came out, I don't even know if I saw the part two, to be
Interesting. Yeah.
honest.
Wow.
Yeah, so let's see, the seventh ones came out. I know I at least saw six and the first part of Deathly Hallows, but it wasn't until like 2 years ago maybe. I was I'd moved and I remember I was living at this place, and I was dating this girl, and I don't remember what. Oh, you know what it was? I was trying to learn Spanish, which I'm still trying to learn Spanish. But I remember being on. I guess it must have been Peacock, the streaming service,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember looking for a movie. I was like, I need a movie that I'm sort of familiar with that I can watch in
Yeah,
Spanish.
yeah. It's a great way.
So yeah, I pulled up Half Blood Prince, which I don't know why I picked that one. That's probably one of the ones I'm least familiar with. But
Okay.
but I started watching it in Spanish, and probably like 5 minutes into it, I was like, nah, I gotta watch this in English. This I'm like way too immersed in this. I gotta I gotta know what's going on. So I watched it in English, and it it hooked me so bad. I think I probably watched the no, I didn't watch the seventh ones after that. I was going on a trip, and so I was going on the super long drive, and I ended up like listening to the first three books or first three movies or so.
Yes.
Like I would play them on my phone and just not be looking at it, but I
Yeah.
would just be listening along. And then I got down there, and I was like, I gotta get like the audiobooks. And so I started watching or listening to the audiobooks on YouTube. And I remember being it it surprised me how little I actually knew
Oh
about the
yeah.
books. 'Cause I remember being like totally caught off guard that the first book starts out with from Mr. Dursley's
Yeah.
perspective.
Yep.
I had no idea there was I didn't know that's how it started out.
Yep.
But so after that, like I got hooked really bad, and I was listening to the audiobooks like 24 hours a day for the next year or something. And I think I listened to them like two or three times through, but
The audiobooks are
they got
such
bad.
comfort.
Yeah, yeah, they're so good. I at first I was listening to them on YouTube, which was a I don't know how it works because I guess it must be tricky with YouTube because it seems like
Yeah.
they'll post something for a while, but then eventually they just get caught
Yeah.
and taken down, and so
Yep.
they'll post them again from a different channel or
You gotta
something.
find it. Yeah.
So it was,
It's like cat and mouse. Yeah.
it's, yeah, so it was kind of hard keeping track because I was really picky with the voices too,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I still am. I'm a Stephen Fry guy, even though
No way. Wow. An American who's a Stephen Fry guy. That's interesting.
yeah. Well, I think part of it is I think part of the charm that it kind of had for me from the beginning was, I mean, growing up an American kid in America for my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
England was always kind of this like mystical land, which it still kind of is.
Yeah.
But like my ancestors came from England, and
Cool.
with American history, England's kind of our motherland, and so uh, so I remember reading the books, and they just were the most British thing I'd ever really been exposed to. And even to this day, it's funny listening to them or reading them. There's still so many things in there where I'm like, I don't know if this is like, especially with foods. It seems like I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a wizard food or if this is British food.
Yeah.
But
There's some weird
it's
foods
so
in these books.
yeah. But uh, and so I think because I'm so charmed by the Britishness of it, I think I eventually kind of converted it to. I was like, I got to get more
Stephen
into
Fry.
like the British
Yeah.
the British editions, and so yeah. So I like Stephen Fry for that, but I think I just like his style more. You're more of a Jim Dale guy though, huh?
Yeah, I'm a big Jim Dale guy. Because that's the only reason is because I just grew up on it. As far as stylistic, I think Stephen Fry, I will say that I think he does it a little bit better stylistically because he doesn't really do a ton of, like, he does voices, but it's not so dramatic as Jim Dale.
Hmm. I think that's kind of the thing that got me too. I
Yeah.
mean, I think Jim Dale, he's super talented,
Mm-hmm.
and he does have like he's got that nice baritone voice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so
I
soothing.
mean,
It's so soothing.
I'll fall asleep to that.
Yeah.
But I think there are just certain characters that, uh, like especially Mr. Vernon and Dobby, he's a really good character actor. But man, those like knock me out of my
Yeah.
seat when
Yeah.
when those characters come into the scene, because he really goes for it.
Yep.
So I kind of like the Stephen Fry, just a little more subdued,
Yeah. I
but
feel
it's
like
also
that's very
just like,
yeah, very British too. A little bit more subdued, a little bit more subliminal. Jim Dale just
yeah,
like, especially with Hermione. Hermione's my least favorite that he does, and it's yeah, his is just nuts. But it's one of those that I've listened to him so much that I could pick it up at any point in the audiobooks and just know exactly where he's at based on the characters' voices that he's using. Like he's gotten really good with that.
yeah, yeah. He's super good at it for sure.
Yeah, I had a friend who I took a trip out to um, the Grand Tetons in Yellowstone with a friend. We were out backpacking in some of the backcountry of the Tetons, but he was just starting to read the books. So he had read the first and second book, and then we had a little bit of like a car ride to get to Yellowstone. So I was like, can I just like download the third audiobook and can we listen to it? So we downloaded the third audiobook. We listened to like half of it on our way up there. And then we were like driving around. We pretty much like had finished it. And then he's like, do you want to download the fourth one? So I was like, yeah, of
Yeah,
course. So we downloaded the
dog.
fourth one. We like did backpacking all throughout the area, but like we had a week where we weren't able to listen to it because we didn't want to like drain battery life on our phones, and we didn't want to like we couldn't listen to it together. So we finished our backpacking trip, and I still remember we had like 2 days just to kind of hang out and like do whatever we wanted. Like we went and got food and stuff like that. But I remember distinctly both of us were like, do you just want to like go sit in the car and drive around and listen to Harry Potter? And both of
Yeah,
us, we literally just drove around like looking for wildlife, but we just listened to Harry Potter for, and we finished all of book four. It took us a long time, but for those 2 days, we were just driving everywhere listening to Harry Potter, and it was so fun.
yeah, man. Looking at wildlife with some Harry Potter, that's a pretty good combination.
It's
That's a
hard to
good
beat.
way to spend days.
It's very hard to beat. Um,
So were you like so with I'm curious about this backpacking trip. So were you like was it one like start to finish hike, or were you kind of, you'd hike for a day and go back to the car and drive to another spot? How did that go?
we did a little bit of both. So in the Tetons, I went to the Tetons on I was gonna do a solo trip, and I went in October of like 5, 6 years ago. And I wanted to do this thing called the Teton Crest Trail. It was like a beautiful trail. I had a friend who did it, or a cousin who did it before, and they were like, "It was so fun. You got to do it." It was like 60 miles. It's essentially like a loop trail, but it goes through all the backcountry of the Tetons, and you like are walking up to this huge, beautiful mountain, great views. So I tried to do it myself, but the day that I got there, it snowed 2 feet, and they weren't letting anybody up the mountain. So I was super bummed
Dang.
about it. So I like had to revamp my whole trip. I just went to Yellowstone and did a lot of hiking there. But when I went back, I asked my friend who's like super into hiking as well, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So we got up there. We went in July, and there was still snow on the mountain. It was crazy in the backcountry. But we had just gone from the southern end all the way to the northern end, and rather than hiking all the way back in the low country, because we didn't really want to do that, we just hitchhiked back. So we hitchhiked back, got back in our car, and then drove all the way up to Yellowstone and did a lot of day hikes. And we did a few overnights in Yellowstone. So we were there for like almost like a week and a half, just kind of backpacking out there. It
Oh,
was
nice.
incredible, so fun.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and that's my one friend who's like very very into it, the same as me. So, like he's my one friend. He's like gonna live in the woods one day and just like do that for the rest of his life. He's like super into it, so it was fun.
Oh, that's the guy you need for
I
sure.
know exactly. Yeah. And he just got super into Harry Potter at that point, because I remember even when we were chilling in the town of Jackson one day, and we were at like a bookstore, and I had gotten a different book, and we had just finished Goblet of Fire, and we had like another few hours before we were gonna go back to our hotel and just kind of pack it in for the night. And he went to the bookstore, got Order of the Phoenix, and we just sat in a park. And the park was packed. It was like everyone was there, but he was just sitting right against the tree. And I still remember like a visual image. I was against the tree reading a different book, and he was just sitting there reading Order of the Phoenix. And I was like, I wasn't paying attention to my book at all. I was just looking at his facial reactions, how people were introduced and everything like that. It was like so fun to just watch him react to this book.
Yeah, that's a good one for
Yeah,
sure. That
yeah.
one, I feel like there's so much expansion of everything,
Oh
and
my gosh, yeah.
some of my favorite characters. come out in Order of the Phoenix. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a good one to have on vacation
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, it's so good. Now, do you have a ranking of the books?
Ooh, my ranking would probably be 6, 5. No.
Wait.
Six.
6 as your least favorite.
Oh no. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
As my
Start with your least favorite.
okay. Least favorite would be uh, two,
Okay.
one,
Yep.
hmm, 2, 1, 4,
Wow, okay.
5, 7, 6.
Wait, so 215. What what'd you say again?
Two.
2.
I think it was 2, 1, 4, 5, 7, 6. Those. I mean those. Uh. Four.
Where's Prisoner of Azkaban in the mix too?
Oh, did I miss that? Oh, I must have been repeating something.
Like, it's so
Prisoner
hard
of
to come up with a ranking of these books. So I completely understand. Every time I rank these books, I'm like, I feel like this one should be here. Everything's swapping in my mind for where it really should be. And the only two
Yeah,
firm places I have are 1 and 2 as my 6th and 7th. But even though I love those books with everything in me, I'm like, the other books are just so good. It's hard to put any other books
yeah,
below those.
yeah. My top two and bottom two are those stay the same, but it's the middle
Yeah.
ones that kind of.
Yeah, for sure. So
But
what were your
six.
top two? 6?
So my first one has got to be Half Blood Prince, and
Okay.
then number 7 is takes my number 2.
Nice.
But I think Half Blood Prince is it's the perfect book it's the perfect Harry Potter book for me because you at that point there's enough of the Voldemort stuff and the Horcrux stuff is kind of getting fleshed out at that point, but uh, but I mean it's still a full Hogwarts story, you know.
Yep.
So there's because I think that's a big nostalgia thing for me is all the
Yeah.
just stuff going on at Hogwarts and classes and Quidditch and all that. So because I mean 6 and 7 they're pretty close for me, but because 6 is still Hogwarts based, I think that's got to be my number one.
Yeah. The idea of Hogwarts, like I said this to Jen and Danny when they were first starting, but like you'll wish the books were longer and you'll wish that there just were full chapters where like nothing happened but they just went to class, you know. I remember reading for the first time being like, I just want more of them living their lives at Hogwarts.
Yeah, yeah, that's no joke. I think just the aspect of because I mean my parents they were great,
Mhm.
so I'm definitely not like saying anything. This isn't a complaint, but they were pretty strict parents,
Mhm.
just kind of your typical strict parents.
Yep.
But it was something as a kid that is so fun. Just thinking about like going off to school
Yeah.
and you're kind of on your own and you got this sweet little invisibility cloak. You
Yeah, I
can
know.
prowl around the halls at night and kind of just run run feral a little bit
Yes.
through this cool castle with all these secrets and things going on. And so
It's
I
interesting
think
you
that
say that
part.
too, because I feel like the story isn't necessarily like an adventure story, but I feel like putting ourselves in the shoes of Harry, like with everything that he has, with this invisibility cloak, no like parental figures watching over him. It's like really an
Yeah,
adventure story. You as a kid are like, what would I do? This would be so fun, just like roaming around this castle.
yeah, I feel like it kind of scratches all those itches that kids have
Mm.
with not having adult supervision and getting into trouble. And but at the same time you're running around, you got this wand.
Yeah.
And Harry going back to the Dursleys, and he's
Mm.
walking around as a normal kid, but in his back pocket he knows he's he can light something on fire if he needs to or do something cool.
Yeah.
I think that aspect of it is just that's stuff that I think every kid dreams about
Oh
to
yeah.
some extent. So it's kind of perfect in that way.
Yeah, it really is. Like yeah. Cuz on top of just being a good story, you have to make this so imaginative that kids like want to be there. And I feel like she
Yeah.
captured both really well. Like it's simultaneously a place that I want to be at all the time. Like, I'm 32 and I'm still waiting for my Hogwarts letter, But at the same
Yeah.
time, the story itself in this like incredible world is just so perfect. It's so good.
Yeah, it's super well done. I mean, what's funny is probably the first like two times I went through it, I I don't even know if I was really following the plot super well.
Hmm.
Like when I listened to it a couple years ago, when I listened to the audiobook last year, I think it was, when I went through Goblet of Fire for the first time in like a decade, I mean I was totally into it, not knowing not knowing how it ends, not knowing who
Yeah,
put his name in the goblet, all that stuff was like, still it was like as if I'd never read it, but I'd
it's
read
awesome.
it at least a couple times. So I think I've always had this issue with movies and books where I'm horrible with following the story. So, like with movies, pretty much any movie, I'll miss at least 25% of it just because I'm, all zone out for
Yeah.
something. So I'm always like, there's always a few points in every movie where I think, wait a sec, what's this place that they're going to? Who are they trying to find right now? There's always little things like that. So,
Honestly,
but with
that's both a blessing and a curse, you know. I feel like I'm a little jealous of that. I say sometimes that if I had a superpower, it would be to be able to read books that I love for the first time again and watch movies that I love for the first time again. So it's kind of nice, like you forget a few details so you can rewatch it and it's like a whole new experience.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was it's and for that exact reason, I have this thing where I won't let myself listen to the audiobooks over and over as much
Hmm.
as I'd love to,
Yeah,
because they're so almost like sacred to me
I love that.
that like I want to maintain as much novelty as I can.
Oof.
And so if I, I'll listen to it one time through, but like last year I went through them twice and I was ready to start it a third time, but I was thinking, man, I think I was just listening to Sorcerer's Stone like just a couple months ago. It's still kind of fresh in my mind. Like I gotta let it breathe a little bit. And so, which I think that's actually when I ended up finding you guys, because
Nice.
I was at a point where I was like, well, I got to keep getting my fix somehow.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't just keep listening to it. I'm just gonna wear it out.
Mm,
So I started looking at podcasts, and I found one, but uh, they kind of turned me off a
yeah.
little bit, and so I but I found you guys, and I was hooked pretty much from
Nice.
the start. So I've been
Nice.
been listening for probably close to a year, I
Nice.
think.
That's awesome. That's like you were like a very early listener then if you're listening for a year. We've been going for like a year and a half, but that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty early on. I didn't get to. I think you guys were probably in Goblet of Fire, so I guess I
Yeah.
wasn't like super early on, but it took me
We
a while to get caught up.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And that's like we sped through the first three. Like we went through them really quick. And right now it took us like 4 months to get through Half Blood Prince and Order of the Phoenix. Like each of
Oh,
those books. So it just took us a while to get through those books, which I love. I love going through this slow. But the first three, it was like a few months, and then the next ones, it just took us longer and longer and longer. And I just keep saying Deathly Hallows is going to take us like another year, which hopefully it
yeah,
won't, but I wouldn't have a problem with that. I love going through this. It's so fun.
yeah. There's so much to pick apart in the
Yeah.
later books that you can really get a few hours of material out of each, just a couple chapters. So it's really
Oh, yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And that's like, yeah, it's like my love for the series. I feel like when I was trying to find different podcasts, I was like, there's some ones that are really good. Like I love a few different Harry Potter podcasts, but some of them I was like, they just don't hit the fix that I need. And I was like, I was trying to look through a lot of first time read experiences because I love, like, give me all the first time read experiences. I want someone who's never touched the series before to like go through it. And I would read a few or I would listen to a few podcasts from it, and I was like, some of them are okay, but like they don't hit what I was like looking for. And I was like, I have a few friends who haven't read it. I'm gonna like wait for a friend that hasn't read one and like just gonna ask them to do a podcast. And it's exactly what happened with Jen and Danny. I like roped them into this with Kristen, and it was so fun. I love this.
Yeah, you put together a pretty charismatic group
Yeah.
for a bunch of people who haven't done a podcast. Well,
Yep.
I mean, it sounds like you've done something else kind of on your own, but like those other three guys, for not being like podcasters, I mean,
Oh
they're a
my
fun
gosh.
group to listen to. You guys are just a really, you have a lot of chemistry, so it's
Yeah.
really nice to listen to. So it's pretty, you know, good, pretty good thing you put together from the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, I got very lucky. I had a few friends who like came and listened. They read them, and it was always in my head. I was like, "Ooh, is this person like? Could I do the podcast with this person or this person?" And then when Danny and Jen came, and Kristen was part of this group, and I was like, "This is the group that I've been waiting for years." Because I had
Yeah,
like known Danny growing up, and when Danny was like talking about it, I was like, Danny is just such a thoughtful person, and he's just like very I don't know, like calculate is not the word, but he just thinks deeply before he speaks. And I was like, he just seems like a good radio person, someone who would love doing a podcast. And he is just so good. And then Jen's like hilarity in her comments, and then Kristen just chiming in every once in a while. Like the group just has good rapport, which is I thought that was gonna take a lot longer. When I was initially talking to them, and even they were like, I think it might take us like, a month or two to get into podcasting. And the very first podcast when we did it, we all finished and they were like, that was so fun. But like, when can we do it again? This is great. And the rest is history. That's how we're going. So
yeah, it's really cool.
yeah.
Everybody, because I feel like all three of you are pretty, or all four of you
Mm-hmm.
are all pretty different
Yeah.
in different ways, but it
Yeah.
definitely meshes together really well.
Oh
And
yeah.
the nice thing is, yeah, like I feel like everyone kind of brings different personalities to the table,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a lot of variety in the conversations, which I think is really fun.
Yes. Yeah. That's yeah. It makes it so fun. And that's why I like all these people, even all our friend groups. Because most of it, we were all pretty close friends before we started the podcast, but like people are coming out of the woodwork right now who are friends who are like Danny's sister is the biggest one. We're trying to get her to do the next season. She's into it, but Danny has been like, he's like, don't listen to the podcast, don't do anything. He's like trying to keep her completely spoiler free. And like a bunch of my friends have like come out of the woodwork of not reading it. So like we got all sorts of seasons planned. It's gonna be like fun. We're gonna just keep carrying this on as long as we can go.
Yeah, yeah. Have you had any friends accidentally stumble upon it and be like, hold up, but don't we know this John?
Not yet. That would be actually really cool if someone did that. We had someone recognize so Kristen, this is like a cool moment, and she said this on the podcast, but she went to Starbucks and pulled through the lane, and she gave like some stickers to one of the baristas, and the barista looked at the sticker and was like, her like jaw dropped, and she's like, I listen to you guys all the time. That was like our coolest moment where we're like, no way. Are you kidding me? Like people are actually listening to it. Like we know people are listening, but we're like, we've never met someone who did it before. We have one friend between like the group of us who went to school with me and Danny. And I think he like briefly knew about us doing this podcast, but he kind of stumbled across our podcast too. But he is like legitimately the biggest fan. I saw him at Jen and Danny's wedding, and we were talking for like 5 minutes about the podcast. He was like, how are numbers? He's like, how's everything going? He's like, I listen to you guys every single week. He's like, I'm obsessed with it because he is so into Harry Potter. So that was really fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. I would imagine there's something with something like podcasting where
Mm.
I feel like it's such a common thing, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know anyone who has a podcast,
Yeah.
but I mean, I listen to so many of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though with you guys being a smaller channel, I think it would be really interesting if I did have a friend who had a podcast that had, a few hundred or a few thousand
Mm-hmm.
listeners. I mean, I'd be picking his brain too. So I get
Yeah,
it.
for sure. It's fun, and that's what like we're like growing on different channels and everything like that. But yeah, it's been so fun to do this. Yeah, it's been really fun. Can you tell me what your so we rank the books. Can you tell me if you have favorite moments within each of the books, or just like your favorite moment of the entire series?
Oh, I might be able to. I can probably do each
All
book.
right,
Let's see.
perfect. I love that.
With Sorcerer's Stone, ah, at first I would say Diagon Alley,
Mm,
and just the whole. I've always had this thing where with like superhero movies or movies where there's a like realizing or discovering the powers or the other world or whatever it is. I always love that part of it.
yeah,
So I like that with Sorcerer's Stone, but hearing you guys talk about the Mirror of Erised, that got me thinking about it
yeah,
pretty differently. I
yeah,
always kind of skimmed over that part. I mean, I always knew like, oh, that's really sweet. He saw his family,
yeah.
but
Right, yeah,
hearing you guys talk about it, it hits me completely different now. So
yeah,
I got to say, Mirror of Erised, that's that hits you on a different level. I think that's just
yep,
such a deep um, emotion, with a child who's never known his parents and his first experience, like getting a, a first little interaction with them.
mm,
That's pretty hard to beat.
yep.
So
That
that's
is an
probably
all-time chapter. It's so good. Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah. So that's probably my Sorcerer's Stone pick. Chamber of Secrets. Oh man, probably it'd probably be. I love the whole thing with getting down into the chamber at first.
Mm,
Maybe that might be kind of a
yeah.
random spot, but
No, that's
something
a
about
cool
like
part.
it's like the starting of the journey. I
Yeah,
mean, the whole book is kind of a journey, but like, all right, the first steps into the unknown. I think that's pretty fun, and the whole thing with Lockhart, and you finally find out what's wrong with that dude, and
yeah. The end of that, you're like, oh my gosh, finally this guy gets what he deserves.
oh, it makes so much sense.
I know.
Skeevy little bugger.
I know. Yeah, that's
So
like an unexpected part, but that part is really fun. I love like the journey parts of these books too. Like that's why I love Diagon Alley in the first book, because it's like, his entry into the wizarding world. This is when he's like totally enamored by the wizarding world. It'd be so fun experiencing that. And then even the second book when they're like going down to the Chamber of Secrets, that was such a fun part. Like just their journey down there. Just a small little
yeah,
thing, but it's just fun.
and it's kind of like a different glimpse because with Diagon Alley, I mean, it's like the lightest, uh, the probably the most fun side of the wizarding world that
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah.
So stepping into that, he's seeing all like the cool shops and the different things going on, and it's all it's very safe and very very wholesome. And then Chamber of Secrets, I mean, he's like stepping into the dungeon. There's a
Yeah.
monster down,
I know.
some like ghost of Voldemort
Yeah.
possessing a child. It's like it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
So
First book, it's like the
pretty
third
big.
floor corridor, and this book, it's like the dungeons underneath the lake. It's like down there. It's dirty, dingy.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Let's see. Uh, Prisoner of Azkaban. It would well for the movie. I have this weird thing with pumpkin patches ever since I watched the third movie. Like I've grown pumpkins the last few years
No way. I love
just
that.
because that stinking movie got me really into pumpkins. Just which is they're not even they don't even play that big a role in that movie, but something about they're just around Hagrid's hut and they kind of hide behind this giant pile of pumpkins with the
Yeah.
whole Turner thing. And so I was like, man, that's a nice uh that's a really nice aesthetic. Something about just a pumpkin patch and a
Yeah.
bunch of greenery around. And so I got really into that. But
I feel like the third movie is the most Halloween centric movie. I don't know why, but the
that,
pumpkin patch idea just sticks out in my head, especially for that movie. Like it's a very Halloween movie.
yeah, it definitely has that kind of feel to it. And the whole thing with the Dementor and
Oh
everything.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
a good Halloween movie for sure. Um, Goblet of Fire. It might be probably with the dragon. I think
Mm,
the first task. Ah, no, I gotta say the second task. I when I
yeah.
was little, I wanted so bad to be a Navy SEAL just
No
because I
way.
loved the. Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what Navy SEAls
Yeah.
actually do. I was like, hold up, you're telling me there's a job you can swim around in the water at night, lurking? So that was like something about that was sounded so cool to me. You know, especially being able to breathe underwater.
Mm,
I always thought that sounded really cool. So the
yeah.
second task is swimming through this giant lake and all the creepy stuff down there. That sounded
Yeah.
really cool.
When he gets that
So
gillyweed, it's so fun because you're like, how he can breathe underwater. He's got these like, you know, flippers that he can swim super fast. It's such a cool idea.
yeah, man, that's the dream. I thought for a long time, I was like, what would my animagus be? I
Hmm.
think it would and I think I settled on orca. I think that'd be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's awesome.
You know, you're kind of top of the food
Yeah.
chain, but you still get to swim around in the depths of the ocean and checking out cool fish and stuff. But
Oh yeah.
like, you know, you're pretty safe as an orca. I guess you
They're like
gotta
you.
watch
Yeah.
out for
You're
sharks, but
like the apex predator orca. You know.
yeah, yeah.
I've heard maybe this is wrong, but I've heard some of the only animals that fight orca are like sperm whales, just because they think orca are so annoying or something like that. Like sharks don't even fight them because they're so scared of them.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, man.
Maybe that's a random. Maybe
Prob-
that's a wrong
I'd
fact,
probably
but
be I'd probably be pretty annoying as an orca, so I might have to.
that's a pretty
I might have,
cool animagus. Actually, I feel like that'd be a. Most people are like land or birds, but a whale would be pretty sweet, or a orca would be pretty sweet.
yeah, I mean, I definitely have thought about being a bird would be cool. I also
Yeah.
thought being a dog would be pretty cool. I mean, especially just like some nice
Yeah.
family dog. You get in with like a rich family, you have a pretty good life,
Oh
but
yeah.
you know, you can kind of run out the back door, run to the park, and
Mm-hmm.
just terrorize, you know, some squirrels, make some kids laugh.
Yeah. Dogs live
Good
good
dog.
lives. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Order of the Phoenix. I feel like Order of the Phoenix. I think the oh man, that's a tough one. Maybe just going to the ministry. I'll just say that. I think
Yeah.
it's again. I think I have this weird thing with prowling because I mean I talked about prowling the corridors at night, and now I'm thinking about like
Prowling the
sneaking
depths of the
into.
sea.
Yeah, yeah. I think something really cool about sneaking into like the government building at
Yeah.
night, and you know they're not like looking to cause trouble or anything, but you're kind of just snooping around
Yeah.
and. I think that sounds, especially if you're there for a noble reason. I mean,
I know for
come on,
sure. And then like when
can't
they get their like guest passes, it says, what does it say? Does it say rescue mission or something like
you
that on
mentioned or
it?
something. Yeah,
It's so
yeah,
incredible. I love that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And there's all the cool rooms they're checking out, all like the, you know, the mysteries and everything that you know they didn't know was in there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, the Department of Mysteries, a few people have said that, like even on our Discord, the Department of Mysteries is one of the coolest things that the Wizarding World
Yeah,
has. I would love to be like an unspeakable and to just experience life in an unspeakable for a day.
yeah, you would see some things for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Let's see. Okay, I think Half Blood Prince. I gotta say, I think there. I can't remember. It might be a different book, but I feel like there's a pretty sweet Quidditch moment in Half Blood Prince.
Oh yeah.
I know
There's a few.
Ginny. Ginny like brings the cup home at the end, but
Yeah.
is there something with Harry? Is that when he gets in a fight with Malfoy, or is that might be Order of the Phoenix?
He gets in a fight with Malfoy a lot, but this is yeah, so in Order of the Phoenix he gets in the fight with Malfoy because there's like a lot of fury. He doesn't get in a fight with Malfoy in Half-Blood Prince because Malfoy is not on the team anymore.
Oh,
Or
that's true.
I think he is, but I think he doesn't play in the Gryffindor versus Slytherin game.
That's right. He's off
Yeah.
scheming.
Yeah, he's off scheming. He's off plotting. It's like the perfect opportunity. But the fight that they have in Order of the Phoenix is great, and that's why Harry gets banned from. He has a lifetime ban from Quidditch. But the Quidditch moments in Half Blood Prince are really good too. I love them so much.
Yeah, yeah. There's something so satisfying about a he Harry finally getting to land a fist or two on Malfoy.
Yeah,
I
I know.
feel like
That
that's one of those things that you're
yeah,
kind of waiting for
yeah.
5 books.
That's what one moment that's one of my favorites is. There's a few moments in the movies that I really like, but there's two that two of the characters literally just like Hermione just in the third movie when she decks Malfoy. That was such a great moment. And then another moment that I actually really like is in Half Blood Prince in the movie when Sirius comes in and says, "Don't touch my godson," and actually just punches another Malfoy. So the Malfoys are just getting hammered in these movies. But
Yeah,
it's a great
yeah,
moment. I love it.
yeah. That's pretty satisfying for sure. Let's see. Okay, Deathly Hallows. Favorite moment. There's something I love about the woods.
Mm.
Um, yeah, maybe being in the woods, even though it's not. I mean, probably one of the more. No, no, no. I got to say Godric's Hollow. I think
Oh
there's
yeah.
something about that because that's like, uh, an area where it's kind of getting touched on throughout the other books, but you don't get to finally go there
Mm-hmm.
until Deathly Hallows, and he gets to see his parents' grave or the memorial or something.
Yep.
But something really cool about Harry finally going home and kind of
Oh my
seeing,
gosh, I know.
where it happened. That's pretty,
Yeah.
I think, pretty powerful.
Like there's a few moments in that chapter that stick with me so much. Like Harry and the amount it's like it's a very low moment for him in the moments before that chapter. Like Ron's not with them. Um and they just really have no clue where a Horcrux is, and they're like at a loss. And then they go to Godric's Hollow just because they're like, okay, what else are we gonna do? And so Harry goes, and then he sees the house where, like he was supposed to have died, or his parents died, and all the etchings and like all the memorials left for him, all like the little graffiti left for him, like saying, "Harry, like you're the best," you know. And then he sees his parents' graves, and like there's just so much beauty in that chapter.
Yeah, yeah. Is that where he is like rummaging through and he finds like a part of a letter written from his parents, or
Um,
was that it? No, or was that somewhere else?
that's one of the next chapters that we're gonna come to in Deathly Hallows. That's when they're at Grimmauld Place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think they find it. They
Is
find
it in
it.
Sirius?
Yeah, in Sirius's room, and they only find half of the letter, um, because Snape had stole the other half because it said "love with love, Lily."
Oh, rip my heart out.
I know,
God,
absolutely crushing stuff in that chapter, man. Oh,
that whole thing. That's got to be another reason that number 7 that ranks so high. The whole
yeah,
Snape thing, I think, is so well done. I
yeah,
mean, it took the whole. That's one of those things that like the whole world was kind of
yeah.
uh wondering what was going to happen after Dumbledore died, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like she just took us all for a ride with the whole Snape thing. That's
Yeah.
that's a pretty impressive feat. I don't know how many people predicted that.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing too. Like people were making all sorts of predictions in between these books, and a few people I remember were saying like, Snape is good, really good, but their arguments were a little flimsy. And then it just, yeah, she took us all for a ride. Like how she was able to manipulate people's emotions. Even Danny and Jen, they're in their 30s, and I was like, surely they will not. I thought I was gonna actually have to play into their Snape hatred. I thought I was gonna have to like fan that flame, because I thought at the end of Half Blood Prince they were both gonna be like, okay, yeah, but this was for a purpose, and they were gonna be like, there's still some purpose with Snape. And at the end of that book, both of them were like, nope. We hate everything about him. He's the worst character imaginable. Jen has even mentioned, like in some recordings, where she's like maybe I still feel like there's something that Snape has to do, and Danny like shuts it down. He's like, no way, he killed
Yeah,
Dumbledore. There's nothing that he can do that's good. And how she does that so well, that even like as an adult, when you're analyzing this text literally for a podcast, and you can still be led astray by her writing, and you hate Snape with everything in you, like that is an actual feat of great accomplishment right there.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I feel like she she did enough of the mystery writing on like a smaller scale with each of like, number one was kind of its own little mystery story.
Yeah.
Number two was kind of its own little mystery story. But I mean, by the end, uh, she's a pretty good mystery writer by the
Mm-hmm.
end, and so
Yeah.
tying that all together like that is amazing, and it's such a satisfying ending too,
Yeah.
where you still get to kind of hate Snape a little bit because, yeah, I mean, he was still pretty abusive and mistreating everybody,
Mm.
but the fact that he was at least doing some of it for a reason, kind of as a cover,
Yeah.
that I think there's something kind of satisfying about that.
Yeah, his story is so fascinating. Like again, he's such a divisive character with like people thinking he's good, people think he is bad, but his whole story arc is just such a compelling story arc. I think he's one of the more complicated characters in like literature. I think he's so good.
Yeah,
So well
that's pretty
written.
cool. I'm really curious how. Man, I'm not gonna lie. Listening to some of your guys' podcasts, Jen makes me sweat sometimes because she's so close.
I
Like, I
know.
mean, she does like just blurt out the right answer, and maybe
Yep.
she knows it, maybe she doesn't. But man, the whole Snape thing is gonna have me on my toes.
Oh
Like,
my
I'm just
gosh,
gonna
I
be
know.
praying that she doesn't guess it till the end.
I know. I know. I don't think they will. I'm excited to get to some of these chapters. Like I can't wait till we get to the dough and I can kind of ask them like, where did this come from? What is this? I have no ideas with what some of their theories are going to be. Like I'm so curious how they're going to think through that stuff. And that's why I love that Danny, like this podcast has worked out perfectly. Like this is ordained because they got married. Jen would have, if they weren't married yet, Jen would have taken the books and at least like read through the chapter titles of each one because that's what she did. And if you're reading the chapter title at the very end of the Prince's Tale, I'm like, you know that Snape still has a part to play or something, and Danny is keeping all that from her. It's so funny. Like Danny is not reading any chapters ahead. He's not letting her look at any artwork, and Danny's doing the same for himself. But like it's like perfect that they got married at this time, so like no spoilers can happen. But Jen's predictions are uncanny and so incredible sometimes. It takes everything in me to not blurt out something. She is so good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's so funny. I remember being earlier on, and I don't know where I was, but before they announced that they were
Mm-hmm.
engaged. But I remember the Reddit post that someone had said where they said something about when Jen was saying to Danny, uh,
Yeah.
I don't think it was something about like
Yeah.
know, knowing the right time, and she was like, I don't think you do know the right
Yeah.
time. And someone said like, was she using double speak there?
Yep.
I remember reading that comment thinking like, who is she kidding? I mean, look at them, there's no chemistry there. And then like within like a month later they're like, we're getting married.
Yep.
And I was like, oh wow, I guess I'm really bad at reading that stuff.
Yeah, it was so fun recording all that stuff, like knowing some of the backstory that was happening and knowing that they weren't communicating it yet, and like all the double speak that they were using. It was so funny.
Yeah, yeah, that is pretty funny to
Yeah.
see that from an insider's perspective.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, they're great. I'm so happy for them. But yeah, that's why I like even the whole podcast. I think when Danny initially agreed to do it, he was like excited to do it, but he was just using it as an excuse to get closer to Jen. So it's like perfect.
Oh yeah, he's trying to schmooze the girl.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
pretty
Yeah.
good way to get a guy to to act right and
Yep.
be charming and be funny and be entertaining for a
I
podcast. Just
know.
put a
Yeah.
pretty cute girl on there with him and he'll straighten right up.
That's why he even tells a story when he was first starting. Like they were all in a bar together, Kristen, Danny, and Jen. And Kristen was essentially the one that like got them to agree to read Harry Potter. And so Danny was reading it. He was like, yeah, like if we all like, text each other and tell like theories and stuff like that. And, if we all can kind of like gather together and talk about it every once in a while. And Danny's like, oh, this is going to be great. Like I'm going to get closer to Jen in a few small moments. And then Jen
Yeah.
texted me because I had been trying to convince Jen for years to read the series. I was like, Jen, it's so good, please. And she just never did it. She never like always put it to the side. And then finally she texted me when they were like halfway through the first book. And she was like, by the way, John, I want you to know I finally started it with two other people from book club. And I was like, Danny and Kristen. I was like at the very beginning, Jen, I said, just get me on the group text so I can like vicariously live through you guys. And then they did, and within a week, I was trying to convince them to do a podcast with me because their discussions were so hilarious. And then Danny agreed again because he was like, okay, if I get to spend more time with Jen, then it's worth it, you know?
Yeah, it
It's
worked
so
out
good.
really well
I
for
know.
everybody.
Yeah, it's working out real well for him. Now, do you have a favorite character in the whole series?
I do. I think, well, first I'll say Harry's my favorite character, and
Yeah.
all that's kind of a lame answer. I'll give someone else
No,
too.
that's not
But
a lame
first,
answer at all.
I think yeah, I think he's an interesting character because for one, in a lot of ways, I think as a kid, I think I wanted to be just like Harry in a lot of ways when
Mm,
I was a kid because I mean he's kind of a I was a pretty quiet kid. I was really shy, and he's
mm.
kind of a quieter kid,
Yeah.
but he's he doesn't take crap from anybody, and
Yeah.
he's super heroic, and he's this like natural athlete, and kind of a superstar for the Quidditch team, and gets all that kind of like sports glory, and I played baseball like my whole childhood,
Nice.
but I wasn't really good at it. But so I think the whole Quidditch thing really got to me because I just love the idea of winning the games
Yes.
and being the superstar and everything. I think that really got to me. I also just think he's interesting because he does have some unlikable qualities,
Yep.
especially like book five and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
mostly book five. He can be kind of a jerk sometimes to
Yep.
his friends, and so even though that's not really it's not really an admirable quality, but I think at least for a character, I think it makes him a lot more interesting where you kind of have those moments where you're like, man, I don't really like this dude right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Major time.
overall, yeah, but overall he always comes through and does the right thing. But yeah, Harry's got to be my number one, but oh man, I think Ron's probably my number two, just
Yes.
because
Love Ron.
yeah, he's I think he's so funny
Yeah.
and but at the same time, like he also can be kind of unlikable
Yeah.
sometimes, and
Absolutely.
he can be kind of a jerk, and he can pretty mean to Hermione
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and kind of bullies the uh, the first years when he's a prefect. So he definitely has some things like that too, which again make him not super likable, but they do make him more interesting as a character.
Yeah.
But
That's
overall, he just brings a lot of he's got some good lines for sure. So I really like that.
And Book Ron is so much better than movie Ron usually. I mean, I love Rupert Grint. I think he's the best actor out of the trio, but Book Ron is just like he's a better friend. He's a better source of information for Harry. And both Harry and Ron, their flaws are so evident in the books. Like they're not perfect characters. In the first book, it's interesting because when we were reading it with the season 1 crew, Jen just kept saying like I love Harry. He's like the best. He's so much funnier than the movies. He's like snarky, but he's still shy. Like you just love Harry in the first book, and then all of a sudden some of his flaws come out and you're like Jen really doesn't like Harry that much anymore. But I think she will start liking him again, especially halfway through this book, Deathly Hallows. But Ron is the same. Like Ron's flaws and how she drives out character development through this entire series, but how these characters have such deep flaws, but you still love them and you still like treat them as friends, even yourself as a reader, is just a remarkable thing that she did with that. Like her characters have just such dimension to them.
Yeah, yeah, they're all really interesting, and I like that there's so much variety too.
Yeah.
Like even with the Marauders, I mean, they're all part of the same group, but they all kind of have different personalities and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. They're such a fun group of characters to kind of get immersed
Yeah.
in the book.
Yeah. It's
But
it is. It
do you
really is.
remember when the first movie came out? Like, do you have memories of that?
Yeah, I do. It came out I think when I was in third grade, but It was like very controversial in circles that I was in, but I remember it being one of my friends had gone to see it when we were in 5th grade. Um he had seen the first and the second movie, and I remember it was super like controversial again in the circles that this kid had gone and seen the Harry Potter movies. And then like a year later, like everyone was reading them and no one really cared that much anymore. It was so good. But I remember
Yeah,
I don't remember a ton about the when the first movie came out, but I remember um um it just being like such a phenomenon. Like I played soccer growing up, and I remember the kids that I played soccer with weren't readers at all. We would never talk about books, and we would never really talk about like nerd movies like Harry Potter that much. But everyone, I remember going to a practice and everyone was talking about the movies, but even more than that, everyone was talking about the books. And they were all like even together just talking about what their favorite moments were, everything like that. And this is like a group of like cool soccer kids. And I hadn't read the books at that point. I hadn't even seen the movies, and I was like, there's got to be something to this. So I remember talking to my mom, being like, "Hey, mom, can I read this?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." And then I read it, and then just fell in love with it.
yeah, yeah. It's
How old were
it
you
was
when the
so.
first movie came out?
I must have been. It came out 2001,
I think so. Yeah.
so I would have been like 6, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So, which yeah, so I the first thing I remember is I remember my dad was at the computer and he said, "Hey, we knew they were making a movie." And I remember he called me over and said, "Hey, they found an actor to
Hmm.
play Harry." And so I can still remember looking on the computer and seeing Daniel Radcliffe's
No
little
way.
face. Yeah, and I remember the scene. It was like a so I guess they must have already been filming the movie,
Hmm.
but it was the scene at the end where they win. Gryffindor wins the House Cup. Everybody's cheering, and Harry and Hagrid make
Mm-hmm.
eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
Harry gives him this big old toothy smile, and
Yeah.
I think it was a picture of that. I can still see that in my head. So that was like the earliest,
That's
and
such a cool
then I mean,
moment.
yeah, and the movie came out. I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I mean, for Halloween for both first grade and second grade, I dressed up as Harry Potter and I had this creepy Hedwig puppet on my shoulder.
That's awesome.
And then I remember asking my mom, was like, "Mom, I'm about to go out trick or treating. I need a broom." And she's like, "All right, let me go get you a broom to carry." And she hands me this like plastic teal broom. I was like, "Mom, I can't
This,
use this."
yeah.
It's like,
This isn't what I'm
what,
talking
what is
about.
this? Yeah, I can't use a plastic broom to fly on. That's not how they are.
That's
And
awesome.
he didn't understand, but I was I
Yeah.
was adamant that in like a wooden handle,
Yeah.
old school broom.
Yeah.
But that's pretty funny. I remember that. Um,
That really is so funny.
there was
That's like it reminds me, there's a sketch that Key and Peele do on YouTube, and it's like the American like urban school of witchcraft and wizardry and witchcraft, and they're like their Quidditch team is flying around on brooms like that. He's like, two of our kids are flying around
oh
on Swiffers. They're like, it's
yeah,
so funny. I love it.
dude, I love Key and Peele.
I know they're
That's
so
that's
funny.
so. I think I saw that a long time ago.
Yeah,
I need to watch it again. Such a creative idea,
I
and it's
know.
it's it's funny that there's so many little like inside things in there that
Mm,
you still need to kind of be familiar with the books to get
yeah.
it. But man,
Yep.
it's so funny.
Mm. Now, do you have any super hot takes for the series?
Super hot takes. I think. Ugh,
Sometimes this is
I'm
a
not.
tougher question, but I like a good hot take.
I was not bothered when Dobby died.
Whoa, really? That's a fascinating one, actually.
Yeah, I mean it. It made me sad to see Harry sad, but just as a
Yeah,
character, Dobby never really. I never really got super attached. I feel like
yeah,
he was kind of annoying a lot of times. I mean, he
yeah.
did some. great things, and he was really heroic at times. But I think just as a character, I just never really got super attached. And so when he died, I was like, ah, well, people die. So,
Yeah, I think you're kind of right on that. I feel like it's sometimes it was a little difficult for to get attached to him because he was just so annoying, especially the second book. Like Abby's going through the second book right now, and she's like, "This guy he's so annoying," and
yeah,
he kind of is annoying through the rest of the series too. So that's a good take. I kind of like that take.
yeah, I feel like he does. He definitely gets better after the second book. I think he's
Yeah,
like held up to 10
yeah,
in Chamber of Secrets. After that, he definitely gets better.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I do remember uh, I probably saw the second movies like 100 times as a kid for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason. That was the one that we had the DVD of, and so it was kind of just uh, playing all the time.
Yeah.
I remember we moved into uh, we were moving into a new house, and I remember this house had a cupboard under the stairs, and I remember like looking at that, thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's happening." This is where it all began. I begged my mom, I was like, please let me have that as my room. And she was like, sure, just whatever. So I like threw my all my stuff in there. I slept in there one night,
No
and I
way. That is so
like
cool. I love that.
I woke up in the morning and my neck hurt so bad. I was like, all right, well, Harry got moved into a bigger bedroom. I guess it's okay if I
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
too. So
Yeah. You experienced what Harry experienced, even for a night. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty awesome.
yeah, I got a taste of it and didn't really want to go back after that.
That's so cool. I love that. Having it covered under the stairs like that.
Yeah,
Um,
it was pretty fun. But oh, I was gonna say, I just remember watching the second movie from that
mm,
from that little cupboard, and it was like there was something so cool about that.
that's
I was like, I'm
incredible.
in this world right now.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Like you're actually in a cupboard with Harry, experiencing what he's experiencing while you're watching one of the movies.
Oh man, it was the dream. Oh, actually, speaking of dreams, one thing that I did write down that I wanted to talk about. I had. Have you ever had a lucid dream?
Yeah, a few. Yeah.
Okay, so I've only had, oh, maybe I've had like two or three, but the first one I ever had was I was dreaming I was just like in my neighborhood. It was
Mm-hmm.
nighttime, but I remember I had a broom, and I remember flying. Like I got on my broom and started flying up, and then at that point, I remember looking out over my neighborhood and kind of realizing, oh, I'm sleeping right now. But and, usually when you kind of realize it, usually at least
Yeah.
for me, the dream kind of just starts fading away, and then you're
Yeah.
kind of just awake or asleep, whatever. But that didn't happen, and so I remember being like, hold up, I'm still on this broom right now. Like I know I'm asleep, but the
That's
uh
so cool.
the reality of it was still like completely there. And so I remember kind of testing it out, thinking like, all right, let me fly over. If I go this way, I should fly over my friend's house. If I see my friend's house, then I'll know that this is like, you know,
Oh my
happening.
gosh. That
So I remember
is
flying over my friend's house, and like I kept dreaming, but I could like physically feel the wind on my face, and you know the feeling of being up in the air, and it was so trippy, and so
that's so
it
cool.
felt so real. So I was able to like stick with it for probably a few minutes. It
That's
seemed like, but
so cool. Like to
it
actually
was
be able to
pretty.
experience that. And like I mean like, it's if it's in your mind, that's like the famous line, of course it's in your mind, but why does it mean it's not real? But like if you're like having a dream, sometimes you could just like snap out of it and like but to actually experiencing that and for your like brain to be tricking you into thinking this is reality, that's so cool. That is like I'm jealous of that. I wish I had a dream like
Yeah,
that.
dude, it was a trip. It was like that's probably about as close as I'll ever get to actually living this stuff a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
That's so fun. I'm so jealous, especially that you were flying on a broom. If I could like do one thing in the Wizarding World, I feel like flying on a broom might be one of my things.
Oh yeah, for sure. That would be. I've always had this thing with. I really like being up high.
Mm.
So so if I could hop on a broom and zip up a few hundred feet. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be awesome. Now, here's another side question before we hit our last question. From like watching the movies and like reading the books a few times, what's the one thing that you want like a side series off of? Like,
Ooh,
we were talking about the Unspeakables a few times, you know, like getting a side series on that. And a lot of people in our Discord have thrown out like having a side series called like the House of Black, exploring like the Sirius Black, Narcissa, the sisters, you know.
oh man, I think the House of Black would be cool. Something with the Marauders would be cool.
Yeah.
I think something with the Weasleys, I think would be pretty cool too. I've always
Yeah.
had this like I love the that was an alarm. I love the Burrow.
Yeah,
So
it's the best.
I think something with getting into the Weasleys world a little bit and something about just having a having like a secretly magical house out in the English countryside somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they got a little garden and they got some, you know, I think they have some like farm animals or
Yep.
something. And I think it just sounds so cool. So anytime that Harry goes to the burrow and is hanging out and they're having all their family stuff, I always think that's really cool. So I think something
Agreed.
with the Weasleys and you know, their whole story and maybe their ancestors' story, that might be pretty cool, I think.
I would love that, like a show on the Weasleys. Even just like, even if it was just like an HGTV show on like, you know, Mrs. Weasley like doing a cooking show or like life on the
Oh,
homestead, life on the burrow right now, you know? That would be great.
yeah, man, she'd probably be pretty funny on
Yeah,
TV.
she'd be such a personality. The Joanna
Yeah.
Gaines of the wizarding world.
Ooh, here you go. She'd have some things to teach.
I know, I know. Now final question. What has this series meant to you?
Let's see. I think I think part of it, a big part of it for me, because it was a pretty big part of, especially my early childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot that I got really attached to emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
really, really early on. Especially, like I said, kind of just the imagining being at this castle where you're kind of running wild and you're kind of exploring on your own and all
Mm.
these amazing things that you're seeing and having this little group of friends with you going on all kinds of adventures. Um, but then at the same time, like I was saying, when I was a kid, I wanted to be Harry so bad.
Mm.
So I think I think kind of just fantasizing about that was always really fun for me. And now as an adult, looking back, I think it's a really good way where now I appreciate like the plot a lot more and you know the intricacies of kind of the mystery story of it. But at the same time, there is that big nostalgia factor
Yep.
where I feel like it kind of brings me back to you know being a child. Things were you know more simple and more innocent. I mean, I got a pretty good life now. I'm definitely not complaining, but there is something so
Yeah.
wholesome and you know I think uh, it's easier to I guess romanticize your childhood looking back, which I think is okay.
Yeah.
I think I think it can be fun to kind of romanticize how things used to be. So
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
that's been a lot of fun for me as an adult is to kind of just go back to being a kid and how exciting everything was about this world, but you know, appreciating a different side of it as an adult. I think that's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's something that you read this series and it takes you back to your childhood and it like where you didn't have a worry or care in the world for, you know, all these things in life, but it's just the series just does such a good job with that. Makes me want to be a kid again.
Yeah, and it's cool also as an adult. It's cool that it's become such a big thing where I think people from all backgrounds can really appreciate it. I mean, I come from like, you know, typical Christian suburban background,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved all that. That's been great.
Mm-hmm.
But people from different countries and cultures and different politics, everybody can find something in it that they like and that they
Yeah.
really gravitate to, and something that resonates with them. So I think it can be a pretty unifying thing, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate it for that too.
Yeah. It's got such universal appeal. Like no matter what you're going through, there is something in Harry Potter that can like help you through whatever you're going through.
Yep, exactly.
So good. Well, anything else that you wanted to talk about, or any other questions that you wanted to raise?
Hmm. I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered it. I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely want to thank you guys for what you're doing, and I think I was going through a pretty hard time when I
Mm.
when I found the podcast, and you guys were great to have
Mm.
on in the background, just to kind of keep you out of your head a little bit and keep
Yeah.
you laughing and interested in something. So I think you guys are doing an awesome job,
Man, thank you
and
so
all
much.
these tamale talks are really fun too. You've
Yeah.
you've had some pretty charismatic people on so
Yeah.
far, so that's
Yeah.
it's been, well, I guess up until I came along, but
No way. This has
it's
been fantastic.
but it's been a lot of fun to listen to, and you guys have built a pretty cool community. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I'll just commend you for that.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me. Like that's one of my favorite things is like this when the podcast actually like helps people through real life things. That is that's really an incredible thing. That's like what we're trying to aim through this podcast because it's I think when I've gone through the series and even when I listen to other have podcasts that are like Harry Potter centric or any other podcast really, like the ability that these things can do that they can like transport you out of difficult situations or just like help you through those. And I've always wanted that to be like a focal point of what we do as a podcast, for you to just like have a moment where life is tough and for you to just be able to escape and like enjoy a conversation about Harry Potter with us.
Yeah,
So
it's
thank
really
you
nice
so
to
much.
be able to kind of get out of your head for a little bit, take a breather,
Yep.
and then you kind of just you know get back into whatever you got to do, get back into your
Yeah.
life, but you're a little more refreshed and
Yeah.
a little more energetic. So it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was just a delight. I can talk about Harry Potter for hours, but this is so much fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, John.